I was the one who had to walk away because it just was not, I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't be the boss of 35 offices, and I hated my life. I really collapsed because of it. And I had that sense going in. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to like this, but I feel like if I don't get in on the ground floor of this, I'll regret it for the rest of my life to not have tried this. Hey guys.
Good morning.
Good morning. Let me switch cameras here. Sorry, I should have done this before hopping on.
I think it's connecting. There we go.
Oh, a little Peter, that Peter Attia or Peter Thiel, The Drive.
Peter Attia on that one, which he got canceled recently because apparently he was in the Epstein files, not as like any proof, but like people like Epstein had emailed him and he had responded. So there's like no evidence that he like did bad stuff, but like the fact that he was even connected to that world has been like not good for
Step
him.
away.
Almost
Him, Appa, who else? Our whole profession's gonna go under because I guess every
was
famous
Appa in there?
Yeah, supposedly
His name was listed. Yeah.
That's no bueno. That's no good.
Yeah, that's an email series you certainly don't want
You
to
don't
be
wanna be
tied to in any way, shape, or
No.
form, even if it's
No,
talking
not at
veneers
all.
for somebody. Yeah, you want no part of that.
Let's
All right.
see.
Well, if you had to rank, those are all podcasts, I'm assuming. If you had to rank those podcasts behind you, top 3, excluding your own.
So for me, this was like shout out to like the podcast that like, and there's some more that didn't make this, that like influenced me. So like Dental Hacks was one of my inspirations. Howard Farran, I produced Howard's while I was in dental school. Dan Harris, 10% Happier, his book, his podcast. Startup was like Gimlet Media. This is back in like early days of 2016 podcasting world, and they were like starting this podcasting like little empire, and absolutely loved it. Reese Harper, Dennis Money, Huberman, The Drive, Bigger Pockets, Endurance Planet, Conan O'Brien, Fizzle. So there it is. Fizzle in the corner, bottom left.
See it.
These guys, they're the ones who like inspired me to like start everything. And they were not dental at all, but it was like, hey, starting a blog, an online platform, online community can change your life, and here's how to do it, and here's how to not fizzle out. And I remember like listening to their podcast while doing like practice root canals in residency on like extracted teeth and getting used to a microscope and everything in my 2-year AEGD. And if it weren't for them, I would have not had the balls to like start a podcast and start like a company and all that stuff.
Wow.
So I think that's a good jumping off point. I know Tony wants to dominate because all he's been doing is texting me about how excited he is to talk to you. But I always find people like you, high achievers, I mean, objectively successful. There's something earlier in their life, probably even before dental school, where they're like, there's something more. Can you kind of walk us through? Because I did my AI research.
Are we recording? I guess I didn't even know if we were live.
Yeah. We're always rolling.
We're always rolling. Let me switch cameras, and it won't let me switch cameras. So I'm gonna hop back on and hop back off. I didn't know that Riverside wouldn't let us. So I am so sorry. I'm gonna. This is just you'll have to edit it afterwards. This is crappy podcast. So
yeah, this looks a little more familiar now.
There we go. Cool. Well, are we going to keep rolling off of that earlier one? We can have the ugly one and the nice one all in the same recording.
Yeah, I feel like our podcast, we have a general plan, but I really hate podcasts where they just have a structured list of questions. There's no flow, and the only goal is like, hey, I want to get to these topics. Every time we podcast, we just kind of go where the conversation takes us, and we never get to everything we want to talk about, obviously, naturally. And then hopefully that leads to 6 months, a year down the road, we get you back. And then, you know, I mean, a lot can happen in a year. But going back to that question of wanting more, right? I just always remember in dental school that looking around, and, we had class. And then after 5 o'clock, the people I was surrounded with, it was like no tooth talk, like 5 p.m., pencils down, drills down. And I was like, man, if I'm going to do this for 40 years, clinical dentistry for 40 years, like, I want more. I want to be great at that, or something else, entrepreneurial. So how early, because I have the whole story that you were a lemonade stand kid, like did that whole thing. Was that influenced from your father, who was a business professor, or like, where do you feel like this came from?
I mean, I've always been like a money kid. Like I learned how to count literally with money. Like I remember going to well, I don't remember this. My mom tells me the story of going to the grocery store, and like you give them a bill and then you get change back. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever, that like you got more. It was like, oh, this is sweet. Let's do this all the time. And my dad, so he got a master's in organizational behavior and has trained things like crucial conversations. He's worked with um, like national sports teams, NBA, NFL. He's worked with general managers and coaches, training leadership. He's worked with national like Olympic teams and Fortune 500 companies. So he's awesome in terms of like leadership and crucial conversations and all those things. But he was an entrepreneur, but not like chronic entrepreneur. It wasn't until later as a teenager. So like I was into entrepreneurship way before he kind of started his first business. No, it's just been in me. I've just like always been an entrepreneur. And in dental school, I remember reading a book called Never Eat Alone, by Keith Ferrazzi. And it's about networking. It's about like social engineering. Like, how do you get past people's like secretaries and talk with really cool people and be useful to them and build relationships with, um, people that can change the trajectory of your career and your life. And so I came up with like a hit list, and I had like Howard Farran, and I had like these famous people that, were specifically in the Phoenix Valley, which there's so many people in the Phoenix Valley that are kind of like famous or big influencers or teachers, people teaching at Spear and who had their own podcast. So Howard Farran, Gary Takis, Mark Costes, Alan Mead. And like I became like first name basis with all of those people while I was still in dental school. And I was obsessed. I'm one who's always I've always been obsessed with things, probably to an unhealthy degree. And in dental school, it was entrepreneurship within dentistry, because I just felt like I have to learn this. I have to figure this out. No one's going to teach this to me. And I craved like every drop of existing. There was so little dental entrepreneurial podcasts at the time. There was so few. And that was ultimately why I started Shared Practices. Was I wanted the formula. Like, how do I find and buy the right practice? Should I be a practice owner? That was the whole season one. Like, you guys are talking to associates all the time. Like, that was season one, is like the gap between dental school and deciding and buying your first practice. What are all the things you should do to get there? So anyways, I'm going on and on and on, but there's always been an entrepreneurship obsession in me, and I don't know what about me is this broken.
So basically, obviously, you've been a go-getter, but I don't think that's in everybody. So how do you take that initiative? What'd you do up here to tell yourself, like, I'm going to ask Howard, I'm going to go talk to Mark Costas?
Right. Not just that,
how do you
but
get that name?
Not just that, but at those points in your life, what Tony was saying, that, when I did the same thing, when I was a dental student, I was listening to the podcast and I was reaching out to the docs. I said, look, like, hey, I'm just a dental student, but I want to get to where you're at. Well, where you got to, can we talk? Can I just have an hour of your time? And like Tony was saying, we feel like we need a certain title or level of accomplishment to feel like we're on the same level as someone. But it seems like I bet you did this in high school and college too. You were just reaching out to people way above you to try and learn something. So where did that come from for you?
I think, first off, that book, that book will give you the balls to like reach out to people, because like it's about how to do it and how to be useful to those people. So it's not just I'm going to take from them, but I want to like improve or help them, and if I can in any way, shape, or form. But also dentistry, there's dental famous, there's some people in dentistry that kind of have a big name, or maybe they do have, like APA would be one that, like, okay, oh, can I get to, but honestly, like, if you really tried and you really cared that much, you could probably have a great conversation with APA. Like, dentistry is not that big of a space where we just have such, like, Michael Jordans that are inaccessible, which makes it kind of cool. Like, it's a small industry, it's a small niche, and I think it actually surprises me when dental students, like, are just like head in the sand about everything entrepreneurial and business concepts. Like, we'll go speak at dental schools. I've been invited. I've probably spoken in 20 to 30 dental schools. And if the business club invites me, it's so fun because they're all just like on fire and they're all in.
Yes.
If the dental school, if it's like through ASDA or whatever organization through the dental school, and they're just there for free pizza, they don't like raise their hand. There's no one asking questions.
Yep.
They're just like, okay. And so it's just weird to me that people aren't into stuff like this, and they're just like, meh, I'll worry about that later. But I feel like getting this right, first off, if you want to be a practice owner, deciding that practice ownership is right for me, and then buying or starting the right practice is the difference. And I've seen this now in ways that I've never seen before in the last 2 years, talking with burnt out dentists, because that's one of the topics I've been hitting on Instagram, my men's group, Next Level Fathers. Now I help, like, burnout dentists and successful dentists get in shape and get a six pack, which is weird that that's my world right now. But I talk with burnout dentists who feel very trapped because they bought the wrong practice. They did a startup. They are struggling, and practice ownership has not yielded the fruit that it was supposed to. The happiness, the satisfaction, the control, the money. And the difference between buying a really good practice or doing a startup with really good tools in a strong area and buying the wrong practice or doing a startup where it's just an uphill battle is night and day. It's like 5 years of your career. You can be 5 years ahead buying the right practice or starting the right practice in comparison to doing it wrong. Because when you do it wrong, oftentimes you're trapped. You can't easily sell the practice. You can't get out from underneath it. And you have to grind it out and grow it to a certain point to even have the option to leave. And it's crushing and it's awful. So I don't even know if I answered the question, but it's read the book. And I think the drive has always been there. And it confuses me when people aren't a little bit more obsessed about the next phase in life.
For anyone watching the YouTube version and saw me look down, it's because I just bought the book. It's about $16 on Amazon. So here's a little Charlie Munger exercise. You're talking about the right and wrong practice. Can you name 3 to 6 things that someone would have to do, or the type of practice they would have to buy to be the wrong practice?
This is a great question.
Oh, I saw the eyes.
Yeah. So first off, real quick, size. If the practice is 3 ops is like an automatic X in my books. If you're a general dentist who has hygienists, then I really believe the ratio, and we've seen this play out. We have the numbers, we have the data. 2 hygienists full time, so that's 8 hygiene days, 4 days per hygienist, will feed appropriately the amount of dentistry that 1 full-time dentist can do. So if you have a practice with 3 ops, that means either you don't have 2 full-time hygienists because you need 2 ops to do dentistry, or you do have 2 full-time hygienists, but you don't have enough ops to do the dentistry to take care of those people. So I would rather just stay as an associate. If I was going to own a 3-op practice, I'd rather just work for someone else at a bigger office that kept me more fed, because the real estate is hard capping what I can do. And everyone will have exceptions. And if you're doing some high-end cosmetic fee for service, all on 4 clinic, sure, whatever. You can do a lot out of a few ops. If you're a specialist, so that's number 1. Number 2, and people don't want to hear this, like, when you're in a high fixed cost environment, New York City, a lot of California, some of these high demand downtown places, the stakes are just raised considerably. Like, you have to get everything right in those, because not only do you have all the insurance factors played against you, but like it costs more money to employ people. Your rent costs more money, like utilities, like all the things. The competition is way higher, so marketing costs more money. So how many factors are stacked against you? And there's ways to which like no one has clean enough accounting if in dentistry to do this, but there's a way to figure out my fixed costs. What is my break even number? And then my variable cost for every additional dollar. How much of that do I keep as profit? Um, and if the economics on those are really bad, like if you had an office that was like, you need to break 100K just to break even, and then the profit per dollar after that point is like 100K a month. So now I need $1.2 million of production just to pay the bills. And then after that, it's 20% of every extra dollar. That means like my income is capped out at like $200,000 on a $2 million version of that practice. And those are kind of ridiculous numbers, but you'd look at the 800K, say that I may produce 2 million in that office, which is insane anyways. Like that's not a reasonable expectation for most dentists. 800K would be like above that baseline number, and you'd only keep 20% of that. So like this, like I said, that's an extreme example, and maybe we did that too fast, but really looking at the fixed costs, and understanding how many factors are stacked for or against me, is the thing that a lot of people don't do. And they just assume like, well, this is just what practices look like in Chicago. This is what practices just look like in New York City. And so they settle, and they buy something like that. Another one would be, I saw this with a guy in Jersey who bought a fee-for-service practice that was like a high-end cosmetic practice. So a lot of full mouth rehabs and stuff. And the patient base was overrepresented. So he thought he was getting like 800 to 1,000 patients that are active in that practice. It was actually like 600 that were truly active. And the dentist had done like every little bit of dentistry on that patient base. So he's paying like 1.5, 1.6, might have even been $1.7 million. I know the collections were 1.7. He might have paid 100% of collections for a practice that is tapped out. Like there's not dentistry left to be done. And now the margins to advertise and grow, especially as a fee for service doctor on that kind of high end procedure, are very, very, very low. And so the marketing costs are hard because you're like downtown Jersey Shore, fancy schwanky place, and you're just facing an uphill battle. So I think fee for service, high end stuff with a charismatic doctor, like you want to look at the existing doctor and say like, am I kind of beating this doctor on the clinical side? I can do more things than them. Am I beating them on like the charisma side? Do we have, and this shouldn't matter, but it does. Do we have like a similar-ish, some ties that like patients would be like, oh, okay, old doctor was like this and new doctor's like this, and I can kind of see that. Like I know people who have like ethnic ties because they're like the only dentist from X country or that speaks X language, and they go to sell their practice and you lose a bunch of patients right out the gate. So that's one. The fee for service high end procedure type practices, those ones can be risky to transfer. I'd rather just buy a GP office and add all that crap. So you've got a stable, profitable base, and which is very safe, and then you can build up the cosmetic or the implant practice. The last one would be, and I'll cut it off at 4. I looked at a practice to buy as I was getting out of the Army. I'd already bought 3 at this point and then walked away from that partnership. I technically bought 5 practices while I was in the Army, which is not recommended or typically allowed. I looked at this practice and it was doing like 1.8, 1.9 million. I think it was 6 or 7 ops. It was the main doctor, and then there was like a part-time associate, maybe even full-time associate that was doing a lot of the bread and butter stuff. But the main doctor like taught at like implant education places. He was doing like all the CAD CAM stuff. He was doing the cosmetic stuff. So he was doing a lot of procedures. And it's not one of these where like the profitability wouldn't transfer. It was more like, I was like, can I even keep up to this guy? Like the amount of dentistry he's doing at the speed he's doing it. And then is there room to grow in this practice? It would be like I'm paying top dollar for a practice that as soon as I drive off the lot, it devalues because I'm not as fast and can do all these procedures. But then even if I could, there isn't room to expand and grow this practice further. So I'm paying kind of at the peak of what this practice can be, and there's no room for me to grow it further. I would rather than buy a $1.9 million practice, I'd rather buy that $900,000 practice that had the ops to expand into it, had 7 or 8. It had like an existing patient base that maybe the dentistry hadn't been done as much. So these are I think that'd be a good 4. Practice size, number 1. Really rough uphill economics, number 2, just fixed costs. Number 3, fee for service, high end stuff that's just a risk of patients leaving because or the dentistry is overdone or overrepresented. You don't do your due diligence. You get screwed on that aspect. Or number 4, there's just nowhere to go upward from here. There's kind of only downward to go, and maybe eventually I get it back to where it was. So
Quick break here. If you are a dental student or associate or even a dental practice owner and you like what you're listening to, give us a little subscribe, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Substack, YouTube, wherever you're listening or watching this, and leave us a rating. Let us know how we're doing, what else you'd like to hear about. It really means the world to us. All right, back to Dr. Lowe. So
That was great.
me and Tony, or Tony and I, we want to help associates not even bridge the gap from dental school to ownership, but from dental school to associate. Because like you said, I'm going to repeat the cliche, they teach you how to drill teeth in dental school and not much else, right? Talk to patients, get good case acceptance, lead a staff. These practices where you have these specialized doctors, cosmetic docs, full arch, whatever, you just said they get to an optimal maximum point where purchasing them is not a good idea. So I don't know, I have this weird fetish, if you'll call it, with like mom and pop dentistry, right? Like everyone complains about DSOs in dentistry. There are good ones, there are bad ones. I always tell people I shop at Walmart and Sam's almost exclusively. I understand the value of a corporation. But what we see is a lot of associates kind of getting trapped into subpar, we'll call it, DSOs, right? Overworked, low fees, they're not growing really anywhere. And kind of the people that you end up dealing with, unfulfilled, burnt out. If these really nice practices, most associates shouldn't buy, how can we continue private practice or mom and pop, even if it's DSO backed or DSO owned? But because what I found, I was trying to buy one of these practices, like 7-Ops, cosmetic dentist. He just had a medical thing. He wanted to be with his family, step away. I couldn't afford it. And I probably didn't have the clinical skill set. So from what I heard, a small corporation is going to come in and buy it. And I would hate for all of these practices to go to subpar. And I'm speaking specifically about your big box brands that really make it tough for associates to become owners, to grow clinically, to grow personally. So do you see a pathway where these really nice practices can still end up in the hands of a younger, ambitious doctor and keep a private practice?
Yeah. Well, let me throw out 2 topics that maybe we can circle back to that you triggered in that conversation, then I'll answer this question. So the first, just because I'm going to forget, the first is like fulfilling associateships, good associateships, private practice, DSO, but just in general, like evaluating, thinking about those, like when to walk, when to pull the trigger, all that kind of stuff. So that's one topic. The second one was DSO versus private practice, I think was really where my head was at. But to answer your question on this, unless like I really, unless laws change, I really think there will always be room in dentistry for well-run private practices. Um, and it's just from the fact that like having now done a DSO, um, and I think we did it really well. I was the one who had to walk away because it just was not. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't be the boss of 35 offices, and I hated my life. I really collapsed because of it, and I had that sense going in. I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna like this, but I feel like if I don't get in on the ground floor of this, I'll regret it for the rest of my life to not have tried this. So it's like MB2 is starting or Heartland is starting, and you're like there at the beginning, and you're like, oh, I should probably do this. So it's hard to scale dentistry because every office is a microcosm of culture and the people who are there and all of that. And as it gets scaled, the profits thin. And then all of a sudden, and that culture doesn't transfer. It's hard, even when you're doing the best of intentions, to standardize it. Like people just aren't happy. And when the owner is on site, their leadership can directly influence the practice to be like a much better place. And even the best of DSOs are facing an uphill battle in creating like a positive culture, good things happening. So I think DSOs will always be fraught with just not subpar dentistry, but a subpar experience for both patients and the doctor and a team. And so there will always be turnover. There will always be like just by the DSO being on the street, you can be down the street and patients will come to you because they're like, I went there and it sucked. And I don't think that's going away. I think no matter how good the DSOs get, if we have good ones, I think there will always be room for private practice ownership because of that, because it's hard to do well. And dentistry is so like finicky. It's not standardized. It's not like cookie cutter. It's very specialized, and like the dentist skill sets are very different from one dentist to another's. Their ability to their like bedside manner, the type of dentistry they do. It's not like a chiropractor or, some other industry, but even there, chiropractors and vets, there's still room for private ownership there. I don't think insurance will drive us into this forced corporate model in dentistry, even though insurance continues to suck. So then the question is how? How do I freaking find a practice that doesn't get scooped up by a DSO before I get to it? And this is like a mindset thing of, okay, if I really want to be an owner in this area, I might need to be, number one, patient for the right acquisition. I need to be doing a whole lot more than anyone else is, including the DSOs, to find a good one. And there is way more that people can do. Everyone who's like, I can't find a practice to buy, and they're just like looking at the listings. I'm like, you're just looking at the listings. That's the leftovers after the brokers have farmed it out to DSOs. And there are practices where the owner doesn't want to sell to a DSO that they're looking for you. They're looking for someone like you to buy them out and take care of their patients. And they are not expecting a DSO top dollar, because they know that that world is not what an individual owner could afford. So there are a lot of things people can be doing to find practices that are off market, that go beyond just looking at the listings. And then lastly, you need to be thinking about a startup. You need to kind of have both lines in the water. You need to be looking at the demographics and looking at potential locations and saying, okay, if I can't find an acquisition within 2 years, despite really, truly networking and trying and sending out mailers and talking to every supply rep specialist, going to local societies, looking at all the listings, talking with the broker. And I can go into all the steps you can take to find an off-market deal. If I'm doing that for 2 years and I really just never even saw something worth it, or, you know, it was just too competitive and too hard, is there a pocket of demographics in the area that I'm at that would allow me to do a startup that's like got some legs that can crush it, where I can get a high new patient flow? And so that would be my challenge, is that it's totally doable.
That was a good answer. I definitely want to circle to your triggered things, but you kind of funneled me into some of my triggered
Yeah.
areas that I've been wanting to think about. So you've done the best of all worlds here: military dentistry, private practice, did a DSO. You're kind of where I envision myself going. We want to be practice owners. I too want to fiddle with the idea of a DSO, but I also want to fiddle with the idea of doing it potentially a little differently, where it's built with, I don't know, everyone probably says this, like the
I was
doctors at
gonna
heart.
say,
Like, that's probably everybody's mission. So having done that and having lived that experience, what did you do that worked in that sense? What did you do that you think was either counterproductive or you would do differently if you could circle back and tell 2018 Dr. Lowe what to do? That's what I've been like waking up in the middle of the night thinking about.
Yeah, if I could do it all over again, knowing what I know now, and I was a GP who, you know, had a similar kind of appetite for procedures like I do, even just GP bread and butter. You talk about bread and butter fetish. Are you kidding me, Alex? I feel like bread and butter in like an old office that smells like eugenol, with like 70s wallpaper, and like just like feels like the dental office you'd walk into when you were a kid. That's the office that like is probably printing money. That everyone wants, like the Instagram worthy practice, and, you know, they don't want to buy some old practice. I'm like, no, buy that practice, and it's you're gonna crush it. But so knowing what I know now, one large multi-doctor practice will provide more fulfillment, money, challenges, stress, happiness than you know what to do with. And I would rather all day, every day, have one 3 to 4 doctor large practice than a DSO. Like, you can have $1 million net EBITDA, like true profit. You're not even picking up the handpiece if you've got a really well-run 3 to 4 doctor office. Mix in specialty, you get to 5 doctors, you're doing dentistry. Like, I have seen docs make a lot of good money off of one large dental practice. And then, and only then, if you're like, man, I really want more problems in my life, do you consider buying a second office? And if you're going to buy a second office, buy a bigger practice than your first one. Like, buy a practice that's more profitable and better than your first office. And
I hear this a lot from people, honestly. They tell me the same thing, like build a hospital instead of a one doctor shop. And I know that's kind of common in some places in Europe where they have these dental hospitals. And yeah, I mean, you walk in like a hospital and, oh, you got a toothache? All right, here's the root canal center. Oh, you want to get it pulled? Go down to the left. And yeah, I don't know. That's kind of the idea I've been thinking about a little bit too. Did you ever work in a place like that, or did any of your companies ever have a practice like that? A huge clinic,
Yeah,
15
I mean,
ops? Like, what were you dealing with?
Literally shared practices as a coaching entity, and I'm no longer really associated with shared practices at all, either the podcast or the DSO or the coaching entity. But like, the thing that shared practices does extremely well is, well, there's a lot of things, but the coaching outcome that we nailed early on was going from 1 to 2 to 3 plus doctors. Like, how to do those gear shifts to grow. And we've seen it. We've seen people buy a practice for $800K. I've seen docs who listened to all of our stuff and bought the right practice, doubled it in the first year, and then by year like 2, 3, 4, they've brought on another doctor or two. I have a friend who's expanding to. I have actually multiple doctors in my in Next Level Fathers, in my mastermind, my fitness and men's mastermind for dentists, who are like building 20-op practices. They are doing this right now and like actively moving into them. And actually, I got a heartbreaking message from the one doc who, like, they were supposed to open up this weekend, and there was a fire in the trash can of his 20-op practice, and the smoke, like, thank goodness the building didn't burn down, but the smoke, like, ruined the ceiling tiles and the walls, and they're gonna have to like repaint and delay the opening. And this goes back to the group and what we're focused on. We're focused on like family and all the other crap that matters, and your mindset and your mental health. And he's like, you know what? I am on a trip with my 18-year-old daughter who's going off to college. Where they're like in Yosemite. He's like, I am going to enjoy this trip. And you know, he's like, some tears were shed. This was like very emotionally difficult to have this happen, but I'm not going to let this ruin my last days with my 18-year-old daughter before she goes off to college. And he's like, we're having a great time, and we'll deal with that when we come back. And those are the kinds of blows that, like, despite all the glorifying of practice ownership we talk about, that crap happens and it sucks. And like every practice owner has these like gut punch stories. And that's why people are afraid to do it. And there's good reason that practice owners make more money. They take more risk, and stuff can go wrong, and you eat last. You don't get paid when crap goes wrong. But you can build a life where there's another doctor who has been a coaching client from Shared Practices, and this wasn't meant to be an ad for Shared Practices, who's in my group, who has expanded to a large dental practice, and he's realized, you know what? I actually don't have to live here. I don't have to practice here. And he's moving to another state and is going to be an offsite owner. And like people are like, oh, what are you going to go do where you're moving? He's like, you know what? I actually don't know. Like, he doesn't have to do dentistry because he's built something so good. And so on the other side of like, man, if you can do 5 years of really intelligent practice ownership, you buy the right opportunity, you grow it strategically, you've got the support required to kind of become a better version of yourself and leader, and you go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 doctors, you buy yourself a lot of options. And it might be a really hard 5 years, but on the other side of that, you get to make choices with your time in your life that you might not have thought possible. So that's what I would do if I could do it all over again, is, you know, a 12-op, 16-op, 20-op practice that I can own and do as little or much dentistry as I want. And I can hire on a really strong leadership team in that office that it can run kind of without me. All that would be what I set up for people as like, if you're really this entrepreneurial driven, don't do a freaking DSO. Don't do a DSO. Build that first. Like, that's where you prove that you are a business owner that could do a DSO successfully, and then let me talk you out of it and just be happy with that and invest the rest into the rest of your life. There's like, go invest in other things, spend time with your family, like actually enjoy life. Don't build a freaking DSO.
I just want Tony to hear that again, because Tony's been like, I'm going to buy a practice. I'm going to buy a practice. And he has the skills, the mental skills and the leadership. I truly believe that. But he's like, so Tony's in Arizona now. But he's thinking about moving back home. You know, he's got a wife, just had his third kid. He's like, oh, I don't know where I'm going to live, and I'm going to be there. And I keep telling him, and everyone's told him, you can buy it and be there a little bit, manage it off-site, on-site, and all that stuff. And I don't know, Tony, I don't see you buying a practice, and it's not me telling you this time. It's Dr. Richard Lowe telling you. So hopefully that'll, you know, light a fire.
I've had Howard telling me a couple of weeks ago. Right. So yeah, it's everyone's telling me what I know. Yeah, and that is the plan. I guess I wanted to circle back a little bit to that. So as like a first practice, I think most docs would probably struggle to either get the financing or to manage like a 12 or 16 offer right off the bat. So are you suggesting like look for an 8, buy the 8, and then either build it out to a 12? Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
You buy the 7 or 8. 6 is like the number that I hate the most. You can do it with some gymnastics, but like 6 ops, it's really hard to fit. We talk about that ratio, 2 hygienists, 2 chairs for the doctor. 6 is like to have two full-time side-by-side doctors. Now, if you don't need to be full-time side-by-side, that's fine. But to have two full-time doctors, then you need 4 hygienists full-time, and you need those doctors to be able to produce enough dentistry in their operatories. So 6 just leaves each doctor with 1 op, and it's just not enough. 7, if you have one doctor who's more specialty inclined, then you can have one bread and butter doc and another doc doing more specialty procedure out of one op. And then you get creative with the hours or overlap of the days. Maybe they're, one's there on Mondays, the other one's there on Fridays. And a lot of options open up for you. But if you can buy that 7 or 8 op practice that doesn't have 16 days of hygiene already. So say that it's got like 10 days of hygiene. It's like a bursting at the seams single doctor practice. There's like just a little bit more than you can handle. And then you come in, refine the systems, grow it further, get to that point where you've got like 3 full-time hygienists, and then you're able to like bring on another doctor. And that transition is one of the trickiest. Going from 1 to 2 is really hard, of like when the hygiene and when you bring on another doctor. Some people bring a doctor on too soon. Some people bring a doctor on too late. It's hard to recruit and find doctors, which is a whole nother challenge unto itself. But I love the 7 or 8 op practice that has the potential to grow into. And then you get the crappy blessing of deciding what to do when you hit the cap in that 7 or 8 op practice. Do we expand? Do we raise our fees, drop insurances? And then if you've done it fast enough, here's where you're like, I just bought this practice a few years ago and now I got to go do a startup. So like, but you look at the economics and you look at what you've done and you're like, freak, it's worth it. It is, even though this will cost another, $1.3 million to go build this, larger practice, 15, 16 ops or whatever, it will play out. And I have the data. I've done this enough. I've grown from 1 to 2. That's the hardest part. Now you like know what it takes to grow from 2 to 3 and beyond. So I mean, here's the true ideal world. You buy the 7 or 8 op practice that has the ability to expand next door. Like there's you negotiate with the landlord, or there's like you buy the building, it comes with the building, and there's like a tenant you can kick out next door eventually. That is just like such a glide path to being a 4-doctor practice that doesn't require you to move and start over. You can kind of build out that other half while keeping this half going. If you could wave a magic wand, that's what I would find.
Dr. Besmer here. Quick little pause. Dr. Lowe just spent the last 20 minutes breaking down the 4 ways an associate can buy the wrong practice. Believe it or not, the same 4 traps exist in associate contracts. A non-compete that could freeze you out of your own city. Comp structures that might cost you $40,000 a year that you're leaving on the table. Termination clauses that let them fire you in 30 seconds, but it might take you 60 days to get out of it. Production thresholds you'd have to break your wrist to hit. If this sounds like it might be your situation and you don't want it to be, let us know. Email us, find us on Instagram, theeducatedassociate and theeducatedAssociate@gmail.com. We'll review your contract for you. 2 dentists, not lawyers, 48 hours from the time you upload it. Back to the podcast with Richard. I want to, if it's okay with you, Tony, transition to your most current project, right? Next Level Fathers. First of all, do I have to have kids to be a part of it?
No, I mean, the name, I kind of stupidly shot myself in the foot with that, but it does attract people who like the idea of family and family values and like being a better husband, potentially father. But there are single guys who join. There are guys who don't have kids. There are guys who are going through a divorce or have been through a divorce. And the intention is to find men who want to be better men. And there's really 2 avatars in dentistry that I see. The burned out dentist who was me, like I am struggling to cope and I don't like who I've become. I've put on weight. I'm coping in really unhealthy ways. Maybe I've got addiction. Maybe I'm doom scrolling at night, or, maybe my marriage is really on the rocks, or like I'm kind of a crappy dad because I'm a shell of a human being when I get home at night. And they want to really have massive change, like to look at themselves in the mirror. There's nothing, people talk about like manifesting, and like I'm gonna be a better person. I am a good person, which is great. Like all the positive self-talk stuff is great. But when you look in the mirror, there's a guy who joined like not even 6 months ago. He's lost 50 pounds. When you look in the mirror and you're like, I am a different person. I act very differently than I used to. I show up at my office, in my home in a different way. You don't have to manifest. You're just like, dude, I feel good. I feel good. I look good. So burnout dentist number one. And then the successful dentist who's on the verge of like, now what? Like I'm making more money than I've ever made. I thought this was this pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that was supposed to make me happy and solve all my problems. And I'm actually more stressed than I've ever been. And I'm trying to figure out what's next. Do I buy the second practice? Do I expand and grow? And I want to be around other elite players who are doing big things. And there are people who run a DSO well, as much as it pains me to admit. It is a viable option. And there's a guy in our group who he's just amazing. He's worked with like Dan Martell. If anyone in the business world knows who that is. And I really respect, if I was going to build a DSO, I would do it the way he would. And so being in the room with other dentists who value the same things, who are pushing themselves in the same way, the more successful you are, the harder it is to find a peer group that's going to drive you further while keeping you balanced and centered. If you choose the wrong mentors and wrong peer group in dentistry, you end up having an affair and blowing your life up and drinking yourself to sleep at night, because that's what everyone else is doing. And I've been to like some CE like continuums and courses and groups where it's like all the mentors are kind of going through this like really ugly set of things in the middle. And a lot of times it was egos, it was addictions, it was, such an unbalanced obsession with work and success and clinical dentistry and being the best, that their life, they pay a cost. There's a cost to all of that. And the last part of all this is there is a faith component to this men's group. And, there's guys who joined. The very first guy who joined, he was like, his name's Sam Chien. He's just this awesome traveling implant and surgical doc. He'll like load up all the stuff to do all on four with like his 3D printer and all the things in his car, and he travels around to offices. He's like, Richard, I just want to lose 30 pounds. I'm agnostic. Like, I didn't grow up, my family's Chinese. I didn't grow up with faith. I'm like, that's fine. But you just got to be okay with the fact that Jesus is going to come up. And if that's like a trigger for you and you're not okay with that, it's probably not the right group for you. But there's very few spaces in dentistry where you're allowed to be unapologetically like, I'm a believer, faith is important to me. It's like weird with patients for some of us. It's weird with team members. You don't want to cross lines. Society was pretty woke for a while, and it swung a little bit back where now it's okay to talk about stuff that it didn't used to be. But even amongst colleagues, like, you don't know where people are at, and we're a very scientific medical type community. So there's guys of all faiths. We've got, Jewish, Sikh or Sikh, Muslim, different denominations of Christianity, but like that's part of what we're holding them accountable. Is like, okay, what do you believe? Are you actually doing that? And we're going to push you and inspire each other and push each other. So my full-time focus is the 55 dentists that are in Next Level Fathers who are trying to get a freaking six-pack. And that is this hard thing we're doing together to make ourselves be better men all around. So that's my life right now. I never thought this would be my world.
Can you talk about fitness and faith separately in your life specifically? So a little back, the way I found you is somehow one of your Instagram or posts came up. And so I'm very amateur bodybuilder. And so I'm in the fitness space. All my friends are like 250 pounds plus. And so I have a different perspective on fitness than most.
Yeah.
And when I saw your posts, you're guys are overweight, not the shape they want to be in, but the numbers are like 170 to 140, right? And so I'm like, you know what? If this loser can do it, so can I. And I was thinking like, maybe I can like help people with fitness. But what I love most is there's something to the structure, right? We have structure in our systems, our clinical systems, and our leadership, but for some reason we lose it with our nutrition and our fitness. And from everyone I've talked to, the whole mental, physical overlap is real, right?
Yeah.
Look good, feel good, that structure, seeing that change and progression. Like we progress in our clinicals, we start doing bread and butter and we get better at that. And then we add implants, and then we add aligners, and then we add this and that. Can you talk about your own fitness? I'm not even going to say journey, but like, were you an athlete? You were obviously in the Army, so you did some sort of basic training.
Yeah.
And is that something that you took throughout your career? Or I'm going to guess, and tell me if I'm wrong, people can hear you on other podcasts talking about your tough times, your dark times that probably led to this. Did you notice that maybe you lost that part as well when things got tough?
Yeah, great question. For a lot of the guys in my group, that was the case. They were athletes in college. Like there was this version of themselves that was like, dude, I'm in shape, I'm healthy, I'm strong. I have always been a skinny nerd. I went from being a skinny nerd, which is who my wife married me. I married like several tiers above my weight class, if we're looking at like wrestling terms. Um, there was one of my co-residents in residency in the Army, I had the 2-year AEGD, who came over because I had 3D printed a surgical guide for her at my home, and she had a case coming up. And she came to pick it up, and she came inside and she saw a picture of Christine and I, and it was like on our wedding day. And Christine was like kissing me, and I had like a diastema before. I was wearing glasses. It was before I had a beard, and I've always looked super young. And she's like, "Wow, she really did marry you for love." And I was like, "Oh, what?" Like,
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
just wrecked, just destroyed me. It was great. So no, like I never was strong. I failed the PT test in the Army, which was incredibly embarrassing. When I joined the Army, I actually hired a personal trainer at first, and she was like, "Okay, what are your goals?" And I was like, "I just don't want to look like an idiot in front of my friends. Like that is my goal. I don't want to fail the PT test." And every single PT test, hitting the minimum on the push-ups, sit-ups, and the run, I had to train for it for 2 months. Whereas like so many guys could roll out of bed. One of my best friends in residency, who's now in Next Level Fathers, Chris Merkley, I would just be so pissed because he could just like, he didn't have to try. He just was athletic naturally. So I went from being skinny to being skinny fat. So I put on 50 pounds on top of like 0 frame and 0 muscle. And so this was all new for me. When I joined the men's group that inspired Next Level Fathers, which was Superhuman Fathers, and Emmett Scott from DEO, he's the CEO of DEO, had brought the founder of that group to one of DEO's events, and he showed his before and after of like losing 50 pounds. And, and he was in his late 40s at the time, and he just talked about all these benefits. And I was in a dark place. I was like, shut up and take me my money. I didn't even know what I was signing up for. I was like, do I have to go to the gym? Like I didn't like going to the gym. So at first I did some stuff from home, and then I was like, screw that. I want more weights. I want access to all the machines. And now I've built out my home gym. I've got a squat rack. I've got a tonal. I've got a freak athlete and a treadmill and all the stuff. So I can just do it from home. But this was new for me. And so it was really cool to like find this version of myself. And to like break through that limiting belief, number one, of like, you're just not one of those like muscular strong guys. That's just like not for you. And then number two, as I lost weight and gained muscle at the same time, because when you're that deconditioned, you can truly recomp. You can lose fat, build muscle. Every time I took my shirt off with my wife for 2 years, it was like I was the best looking version of myself I had ever been. And that was really cool to like have her like stop and stare at me in the shower and be like, "Who is this man? Like, who are you? Like, where's my soft nerdy husband?" And it was great. It was a lot of fun.
Bring him back.
Yeah.
I miss him.
So that right there is my fitness side of this. But I was a nutrition science major in undergrad, so understanding nutrition, and I see this as psychology. This is gamification. This is harnessed peer pressure is what we've got. I have thought deep and long and hard about like why this works so well. And it's because we've built a daily game. We're accountable to the group. We tie it to deeper purpose. We tie it to faith. We tie it to being better men and husbands and fathers. And so when you like stack all of these things together, everyone knows what to do. We're all freaking dentists. Like you eat less and work out and like, you know, get a good balance of whole foods and people are going to lose weight and get in shape and put on muscle. But like, we know that, but it doesn't mean we do it. So it's the getting people to do it that has been really fun to figure out and systemize and scale and have it be transformational. And I tell people, if your ego is like fed, if we don't humble you along the way, you come out on the other side of a fitness transformation as just a bigger asshole than you used to be. You're like, I'm the guy. And then you're like, I need to upgrade from my spouse to a better spouse. And like, we miss the whole point. We miss the opportunity to let a fitness transformation lead a deeper transformation of character. And we've done you a disservice by making you a bigger asshole than you were before.
In terms of the faith question,
Yeah.
so I'm going to assume by your background. Are you LDS by chance?
I am, yeah. How'd you figure it out?
Okay. BYU, Midwestern, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm Jewish, and so my mom tried to get me to go to synagogue. We went to actually an Orthodox. I think all Chabads are Orthodox, but my rabbi, he had like 10 kids by the time he was like 35 or 40. Greatest speaker I've ever met. I've never found a more charismatic speaker, but the services were long. I was young. I was a brat. I was like, this is a language I don't even understand. And I went to Jewish school for 2 years. And I didn't see the value of, I'm going to say religion. Faith is kind of part of religion for me. But then being in STEM, I would say I was an atheist. I just like couldn't, like the idea of this extraterrestrial power, whether you see them as an essence, a power, a spirit, or a physical embodiment, right? The typical idea of Jesus just didn't sit right with me. And then I had my own little rock bottom a few years ago, and I see religion as faith, discipline, and ethics. It's a group of people. So like in Judaism, the most Orthodox, or if you choose, you eat kosher. And one of the rules is you don't eat meat and cheese in the same meals. To my knowledge, no other religion does that. I don't see a scientific basis for it. But this idea that I am deciding to follow these rules because there's a power greater than myself, this commitment that I can't even see right now. So that lately, I actually am missing a call with my rabbi. I talk to him every Wednesday. We talk about the Torah portion of the week. I've actually become more religious and am, trying to get back into my faith and talking. So the podcast that actually just came out today was with Jimmy from Money Meets Medicine, and he's a devout Christian. And when I moved to the Tampa Bay area, I think non-accidentally, most of my most high-achieving friends are also very faithful. And there's gotta be something about religion that there's a reason it's stuck around for thousands of years. And I am seeing, anecdotally, of course, the most successful, driven, and fulfilled people have some sort of faith in their life. I think it's a Henry David Thoreau quote. Everybody worships. So something. For those that aren't religious, it could be sports. It could be alcohol. It could be money, right? And there are probably more and less dangerous things to worship. Where has faith, kind of the same thing as the fitness question, how has faith over the whole tenure of your life played a role? When was it strongest? When was it weakest? And how do you get dentists who maybe, like you said, weren't faithful or lost that faith, get that back and help it enhance their life?
Yeah. So, first off, I'll say two of the guys who I feel like are most on fire inside Next Level Fathers are Jewish. And, it's just one of those like, okay, they're crushed up, they're dialed in. So I am, there's a lot of LDS, there's in the LDS culture, we believe we're Christian. All the other Christians think we're off-brand Christians. They think we're like Walmart Christian, and they don't like it. They're like, wow, you're not Christian enough. I actually love being in a very mixed faith setting here because we all push each other, and I care much more about who someone is than the specific doctrines that they subscribe to. And there's a guy who was in our group from Chicago, and he went back to like church for the first time in like 15 years. And he was like, I was sitting there in church and I was like, the message was basically, don't suck. Like he was like, that's what God wants us to do, is not suck. And like, so I thought that was really a really funny way to encapsulate. And that's what we're trying to do in this group, is like to become a better version of ourselves that's less focused on ourselves and more focused on doing good in this world, helping other people. But I do believe, from the bottom of my heart, I believe there is a divine power, and that he is our Father and he wants us to be happy. And that relationship with, like, there's meaning, there's purpose, there's fulfillment, there is reason to care beyond myself. I think all of those things drive so much goodness in someone's life. And I think so you asked the arc of my life. I grew up very faithful. It's always been a big part of my life. In the depths of me being a CEO and struggling and being miserable, undiagnosed bipolar 2. I just got diagnosed with bipolar 2 a couple of years ago, and that's
Congratulations.
Congratulations. It's one of those that, like, people don't know what to think of that. They're like,
Right.
It's not like autism, like Love on the Spectrum. The new season just came out. My wife's watching it. It's not like a well understood thing, and a lot of people blow their lives up before they are diagnosed with bipolar. And my grandma like talked to the radio and attempted to baptize my aunt in the tub, and like had hallucinations, and she was bipolar and took medication for it her whole life. So I've drifted, not in my beliefs. Like, for me, it was never like, this isn't real, so I can do whatever I want. It was, I cut myself off from God through my behavior and choices, and became someone who wasn't living my values, who wasn't living up to who I wanted to be. And that lack of like integrity with myself and who I wanted to be, I think was a direct contributor to my unhappiness. I also had, I was depressed. You know, bipolar 2 is more depression and less like manic. It's less up. And when you are up, you're not like manic, you're hypomanic. So like manic, you like think you're the second coming. You're like seeing things and you're hospitalized. Like, that's what true manic in bipolar 1 is. So bipolar 2 is more depression mixed with these kind of really high moments. And, you know, as like an entrepreneur, you know, in those high moments, like, I have good ideas and we commit to big things, and I've done a lot of big things that you look back and you're like, oh, maybe that's a little crazy of you. But I was depressed, and I didn't recognize that or understand that. And then I coped really unhealthily with my depression. And that made everything worse, and it almost wrecked my marriage and took a lot of untangling. And that's what this fitness journey and faith journey for me really changed, was I'm willing to change anything to get myself right with my wife, to get myself right with God, to overcome these addictions, and putting my heart on the table and just being like, okay, God, whatever you need me to change or do, I will do, has led to just miracle after miracle, the most fulfilling life. I never thought this would be my life. I never thought I'd be a fitness influencer on Instagram for Dennis, who refuses to take his shirt off for regular posts. But every once in a while, I got to have that before and after. But that, like, I don't want to be the, like, here's what to eat, here's the exercises you do, because there's like a bazillion of those people. I'm like, no, let me talk to Dennis. And then, by the way, if you want to get a 6-pack, here we go. So I don't know if that answers your question.
I'm just more interested, I think. So throughout my journey, I'm trying to buy a practice right now, and I'm in a, I don't know if my boss listens to this. I definitely gave her the name of the podcast, but it's tough. It's slow. I feel unfulfilled. There's not enough work for me. I love clinical dentistry. Here's one of the drinks you take for our drinking game. On last Black Friday, I bought myself $500 worth of dental textbooks. Like, that was my gift to myself. Like, I didn't get into dentistry because I love people. My mom made me be a dentist. She's from the Soviet Union. There's nothing more impressive than having your son be a doctor. My brother's a lawyer. Like, it's a great immigrant Jewish family. So I felt like this was a path that I didn't choose, but I'm in it. And luckily, I like it enough. I think I'm a curious person, but I no, I'm
I
gonna
like
land the
that.
plane.
I like it. I like it
But
enough.
I want to be great. And I honestly love clinical dentistry, like doing it, the act of it. And I want to be great at whatever that means for me. I love theory. I love learning. I'm just curious. But since this path has been honestly pretty unfulfilling, mostly, right, on average, I took out my first full bony third molar the other day.
Yeah, there we go.
It was awesome.
Now we're talking.
Wasn't as smooth as I like, but I got it out 100%. Guy still feels his lip. Like, thank God, right?
Yeah.
That's all I could ask for.
Do you want to hear the secret to getting really good at extractions, surgical extractions? You section teeth
everything
the wrong way and still get the tooth out, and then once you learn how to section them the right way, then you're like golden.
Right.
So that was my path to learning, was like, just do it wrong and still get the tooth out a whole bunch of times, and then you're like, oh, when you do this right, now it's so much easier. Anyway, sorry.
No, and talking, we had Stephen Liu on, and he was talking a book called The Happiness Advantage. And at the end of the day, this is going to sound cliche, but I have my health, I breathe, and I can pay my bills. I feel like with my strive, hopefully I'll get somewhere with more freedom, whether it's financial, emotional, spiritual, whatever. But throughout this path, I recently hired a bodybuilding coach.
Yeah.
And that was probably the best decision of my life, because I got my head out of my own butt, because I thought I knew everything. And my coach is like, ranges between 280 to 300 pounds. Like, he's an animal.
I love that you talk in like, there's this guy on Instagram that was like 220 lean, like or 240 lean. He like walks around. He's obviously on juice and like, but like this world of like your number, you're so in that world. It's just hilarious to hear you talk. Yeah.
Right. But through this relatively tough, like, I understand I came from an upper middle, socioeconomic family, always had food, always had clothes. But in terms of this fulfillment, it just hasn't been there in my career and my personal life. And because of that, I have really relied on faith and honestly fitness a little bit. And so seeing groups like yours, where I listen to all of the dental CEO, Scott Loon, the Full Arch podcast, like all these people, and it's all like number, strategy, practices, clinical, but it's what I'm talking to my rabbi, right? It's what I'm talking to people like you, who I think my first question was like something greater, right? And so just hearing about what you're doing now with Next Level Fathers, or for me, Next Level Wannabe Fathers, or soon to be fathers, future fathers, I think this stuff is underrepresented in successful and meaningful dentistry. So my last question is, Dr. Richard Lowe, there's a new school in Orlando. I think it's called the Larkin School of Dental Medicine. You were actually just named the czar of the school.
This is theoretical, right?
Sure. Theoretical, thought experiment. You talk about fitness, faith, business, all this stuff. How would you set up a dental school curriculum, aside from the clinical portion, to help dental students actually be more prepared?
Man, I'm usually pretty good at questions off the cuff. This one's got me.
While you think, because I'll just explain where I'm coming from. Everyone says, oh, I wish I had a dental business class. I wish they taught business. And in my personal opinion, you don't teach business, you do business. You just need to not go bankrupt, and you make enough mistakes and you talk enough people. But from what you said, there probably is a way to set a sort of baseline in terms of fitness, faith, business, and dentistry that just isn't there right now.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to answer this in 3 parts, and it just came to me as you say that. So the first is, maybe two parts. The first is, why would you want to learn business in dental school? Any business professor worth their salt, I'm going to insult like half the nation's dental business professors right now, would be out there doing it if they were really, really good. So the ones that you want teaching you are rarely the ones who are teaching in the dental school. And that's not always the case. Sometimes like someone really, truly did crush it. Now they just want to give back and they go to the dental school. But over time, they become out of touch. And like, this is like 20 years ago information that worked for them. And like, they just aren't aware of the current environment. So number one, like, I actually don't want more business. Ironically, me and my partners did look at starting a dental school. Like we had a offer on a multi-million-dollar building and talked with like funding and all that. So like this is less hypothetical than you might think. We've done some crazy things. But the second portion of the faith and the fitness part of it is, number one, it is deeply personal. But number two, I think that for me, the knowledge isn't what does it. It's the living it. And that's actually the whole reason that people are paying at me. Like they pay me to yell at them. And they pay me to have a daily game and accountability. And so I don't think it needs to be incorporated in the curriculum. I think there needs to be groups. You need to find your tribe, find your people, and build a game that you hold yourself accountable to. And the problem though is you text a couple buddies and you're like, let's do an accountability group. And they do it for like 2 weeks and then no one texts and everyone falls off. So I actually don't have a solution for that, because the one thing that's cool about dental school is you're all doing a hard thing and you're doing it together. That joint suffering creates this camaraderie that's hard to get anywhere else. And that's what we're doing now, is like, we're all doing this hard thing together, getting a six pack, and that joint suffering, but also joint kind of goal and like standard that we're holding ourselves to. We have daily calls. There's dental masterminds that people pay a lot of money for a once a month call and they don't show up to it. We've got like 20 guys, 30 guys on daily calls, just checking in. They're short little like check-in calls. But it's fire. Like these calls, we turn them into mini podcast episodes and they just light everyone up and it's a blast. And so I think people have to have skin in the game to like care enough. They have to opt in. The other thing, if you did it as a dental school, it'd be like forced on you and be like a thing that people would resent and be frustrated with and all this stuff. People have to want it, just like they have to want practice ownership. And if you are trying to push on someone something that's intense like this, it's like being on a sports team. It's like being in a military unit. It's like being in dental school. They got to want to be there because there's suffering involved. There's pain involved, but there is so much good on the other side. So yeah, I would say, no, I wouldn't even try to answer your question.
That's fair. That was a challenging question. I was wondering where he was going to take that.
There's this university, it's called the University of Austin, Texas. So I was an econ major in
No way.
in
I was an econ
college.
major originally.
Yeah. Oh, double major. I could have graduated early. My last semester I took like for relatively advanced econ classes, game theory. They were my favorite classes.
Yeah.
Microbiome, boring. But so I listened to this podcast and there are just a lot of like professors on, and there's this new university. It's not like any other school. And so they have this thing called the Polaris Project. And I'm on their website right now. It says a 4-year journey to launch a startup, pursue scholarly research, or complete a hands-on apprenticeship. Present what you've built by graduation. So my question, kind of what I was thinking with this whole fitness, faith, business is like, give dental students something more to pursue in their 4 years. Not even maybe related to dentistry, but how they can do dentistry through their religious group, or how they can, I don't know, like I'm part of the Academy for Sports Dentistry, like something related to athletics or entrepreneurship, you know, start a startup while in dental school, just something more, because I think groups and projects like what you're doing, they teach more than drill and fill, right? And it kind of bleeds into your ability to drill and fill.
It sounds like you should start this dental school, not me. You're passionate about it. You're the one on the website figuring all this stuff out. So like, gauntlet is laid down, Alex. Like, let's get after it. Tony,
That's your big dream, Alex.
Yeah, I should own my own practice first and make money and get out of debt. But anyway, I mean, this has been more than I could have ever asked for, Tony.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and like I'm sure you see, I'm always like taking notes during these things. And what I actually want to do, you guys probably hear my son waking up, but I wanted to thank both of you. I feel like the dental world is filled with people that post the dream office, the perfect crown prep, the implant that's 1 millimeter subcrestal and perfectly between the teeth, but you don't see the one that is facing to the distal. Richard, Alex, man, you guys post honest. You guys, I love your series about the bad dentist. I loved your series about when the guy was trying to punk you or gal or whatever for 15 grand or whatever it was. You don't see that stuff. And to see somebody like yourself that is a pinnacle for a lot of people. I mean, you are now one of those kind of famous dentists. And to see you posting honestly and sharing candid stories with us this morning, and Alex kind of self-deprecates a lot and says things like that. I think that is one of the more powerful things. And I really, I hate to thank my own co-host, but thank you, Alex and Richard, for like being so honest and open, because that's something I need to hear. I was from a family that like, you don't share your bad stuff with other people. You don't even tell your mom that you had a bad day. No matter what, you had a good day. And the world needs more people that share their honesty, the good and the bad, the ugly and the beautiful. So just really thank you guys this morning, and thank you for always presenting the honest reality. I really have appreciated that from both of you.
Oh, thanks, man. No, and I think I tell my wife, like, dental famous is not a thing. Like a few people know me because they listen to the podcast, and 90% of dentistry has no clue who I am, and or 95%. But if sharing embarrassing things helps one dentist, then I'm willing to share embarrassing things. And it's really weird, especially the more successful you are in dentistry, the more you feel like what Alex said, which is, I have all these good things. Why am I still unfulfilled? Why am I unhappy? What's going on? And like, let's talk about that. But guys, I think guys especially suck at this because we just want to talk about sports. We just want to talk about video games. We just want to talk about exactly. We want to talk about 240 versus 260 and all the other stuff, and not like
facts.
Hey, I'm not happy and I'm confused why. So
my wife and I are fighting every night.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So no, thanks for having me on. This is a blast. I knew it was going to be fun, and that's why I said yes, was like, let's go. These guys look like they're a blast, and sure enough, you have been.
Yeah. All right. And thanks for taking the time on a busy Wednesday for us.
Of course.
Yep. All right. I'm going to go hit legs. I'll see you guys soon.
Yep.